Obviously, I've worked for you sort of what feels by proxy, you know, because the nature of big companies is that you're a busy man.
Well, so and so.
Well, yeah, but
I mean, I am. I keep myself occupied for sure.
Let's go for sort of chest level and then talk over the top of it.
Yep.
And then you can slip a hand under there or however you're comfortable. I'm so thrilled. You know, I keep saying it, but I'm so thrilled that you've come, because I kind of see this as almost a mentor-mentee chat, really.
Right. Okay.
Because I'm kind of inadvertently find myself buying lots of kit.
Got it. Yeah.
And as I understand it, and as I've witnessed and helped organise, you've got a warehouse full of kit, and it's kind of, well, what's it like at that level, and to manage that, and what does that sort of come with, and how have you got to that point, and you know, and all of those sorts of, for me, really interesting questions, because I can see myself with success kind of ending up in that kind of area, and it's fascinating for me to understand how it happened. And
sure.
I guess, you know, give me a summary of where you are, and then we can talk about how you got there, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, where am I now? Gosh. You know, I am the Chief Executive Officer of the Absolute Production Group, which incorporates three main trading companies, which is Absolute Audiovisual, which is an equipment hire, sales, installation, events, etc. company. We have AP Live, which is an events agency involved in all elements of planning, from delegate management, travel, accommodation, food and beverage, all of those types of things. And then we have Display Graphics, which is a exhibition design and build company, but also has a full large format printing business on its side of it as well. So we have the three companies that trade as the Absolute Production Group, but they're all independently run, so trade individually, or you can use all three companies if you like, depending on what clients want. So
how did it start?
Well, Absolute.
Well, what did you start with, and what provoked you, and you know?
Absolute. Absolute started in January 2006. You know, with the idea of trying to, I suppose from my point of view, do something for myself rather than doing it for somebody else. And whilst it's lovely doing something for other people, I had ideas of doing things differently, using different technology, and you know, and I wanted to give it a try, really. And I'll come back to my earlier career prior to that. But you know, I think when I started Absolute, I had a box of cables, and a laptop basically, and a printer. And you know, on the first day, I sat there. I was like, all right, I haven't got any work, so I need to, you know, build a website. So I sat down and wrote some text for a website. A friend of mine, Benny Marsden, helped me build the website. It was very basic. It was more text than pictures. There was a lot of use of the word "we" rather than "I." And, you know, we got some flyers printed. I wrote to a few people that I knew, said, you know, set up my own AV company, whatever. And they sort of sat there and kind of waited for the phone to ring. But you know, ultimately trying to promote the fact that I'm there. A couple of people that I knew got in contact with me after about maybe 4 or 5 weeks and said, I need to hire a plasma screen. Can you give me a price? Absolutely, no problem at all. Here's a price for a plasma screen. Yep, we'll go with that. Fantastic. It's a week's hire of a plasma screen. So I had to go and rent a van, drive to London, hire a plasma screen from somebody else, drive it to the other side of Cambridge, drop it off. Week later, reverse process. Back in those days, you could probably make £150 a week margin on a plasma screen. So he rang and said, actually, I need two now for the next job. And then, I need another one for another job. And this was to an exhibition stand builder. And then he passed my details on to somebody else who also does exhibition stands. And that's the company that we acquired, which is Display Graphics, back in 2017, I guess. So they became a client of ours as well. And this is sort of 2006, so quite some time before that. eventually I was making enough money that I could afford to go and buy my own plasma screen. But you don't realise the cost of all of the bits to go with. So a screen itself at the time was probably £1,500, but it was £200 for a bracket, it was £500 for a flight case. It was, another £50 for all the cables to go with it. But then you still got to get it there and you've got to get it back. And, so I did this process for a while, and all the time I was trying to get a bank loan. I think I approached 3 different banks to get a loan to start the company, and all of them declined on the basis it was too high risk. Why would we loan you, whatever it was, £40,000 to buy some kit that if you ever get in trouble, you're just going to sell it down the pub and then we've lost our money? I was like, I suppose I never thought it like that, but that would be fraud, and I would never do that because I'm an honest, nice guy. But clearly, that's not their experience. So I was a bit scuppered, really. So eventually, I managed to get enough of a deposit together to lease a van, and then eventually, I did get a bank loan, but it was probably April by this point, so 4 months in. But I was making enough money to cover the costs and starting to build the business. And all the time there was a huge amount of learnings going on. So obviously once I got the loan, I was able to buy 4 42-inch plasmas, 2 50-inch plasmas, a PA system, some radio mics. And I was doing little conferences in the college and doing the screen thing. Then I bought a small video company from a guy that I used to know just north of Cambridge, doing kids' school plays, dance shows, Amjam, had a few kind of corporate videos at the same time. So we took that on, we got some kit, and we got a client base. So that kind of kept me busy in the evenings, and I was doing the plasma screen thing in the day. And then a couple of customers had said to me along the way, we keep hiring these screens from you for our events, but we actually need something put in our boardroom. Would you be interested in coming to have a look? I was like, yeah, for sure. So go and have a look at someone's boardroom. Yep, we can put a plasma on the wall, or actually a projector would be better for you. So we started doing little installs on the side. I say as another way to make money. And then another client bought a small video wall, and we were the kind of middleman and recommended and spec'd it and helped them get used to it. And then after that, they used to take it on their own jobs, but we sort of made a bit there. And then so it was kind of it was very varied. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Let's put it that way.
It sounds like it kind of built itself.
It did. And it was a bit of a case of take everything you can, but it evolved and grew organically, which has been part of, I think, the success of it, rather than going and buying, 25 plasma screens and that be the focus. Actually, we bought a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So we had plenty of things. We didn't have much of anything. We didn't have any large quantities, but we were able to do, a nice job or a couple of jobs at the same time kind of thing. But our kind of focus has always been, trying to do a good job. Nice guys, great kit, give a shit. That's our unofficial company motto that we kind of, coined years ago. But that's very much what we stand for. And it comes from the top down. I'm invested in what you're doing, therefore you're invested in what I'm doing, and together we kind of create a partnership. Now that could be a hire of a plasma screen, or it could be a huge event. But that's what we want, and we want our team to reflect those values as well, because the guys, they're on site, they're often only there for 2 or 3 days, but we need them to fit in quickly. There's no time in the corporate event to sort of go back and fix things. It's like you've got to live in the moment and be reactive to what's going on. But you've got to be understanding and sympathetic to the fact that these problems or these changes are not caused by the individuals or whatever. It's often circumstance. Sometimes it is, somebody wants to do something differently, or the layout's wrong, or it doesn't quite work. So we just have to crack on with it. And I think that's where I started, trying to be very service sort of focused. But then, obviously, as we grew, it was then trying to maintain that level of service. So as time went on, funny, sort of year 2, my first boss called me up, who was a production manager by that point. He used to run a big audio company, but he said, I've got I'm PM on the Snoop Dogg and P Diddy European tour. So it's 2007, I think. It's kind of East Coast, West Coast type thing with Diddy and Snoop. Do you want to do all the live cameras or the iMac? I was like, okay. Yeah, sure. I'll give it a go. I've got these cameras because I bought this video company. They're all, I mean, it was all 4:3 technology back then, but it's still, they were decent quality broadcast spec cameras. So we actually went out and bought a third one, bought some cable. I had a friend who had vision mixed a one-day conference, the chef from our local pub, and a guy I worked on the local crew with at the Cambridge Corn Exchange. Went out on this tour. We had truck drivers operating the cameras, and the boys fitted right in because they adapted to that situation. That nice guy's great kid, give a shit. You know, didn't sit there, we do this, we do that. They kind of looked at it, okay, we need to fit in with these guys rather than the other way around. And of course, we came from the corporate events side. My background's in music, but theirs was, you know, as I just said, very varied. Absolute blast. Tour went really, really well. Got a really good reputation from it. I flew out to the first show. As I landed back in Heathrow, I got a phone call from Chris Norton, who's a technical manager at the Corn Exchange. He asked me if I could put some costs together for an event they were doing. It was Al Gore's climate change event. And he came to Cambridge. So it's 3 days in the Guildhall, 1 day in the Corn Exchange for a paid audience. We did all the projection. I went out and bought a projector. We did all of the set in the Guildhall. We did all the audio, well, pretty much the whole package. But I still worked on my own at this point, so I had to grab some freelancers. That just coincided with the week my daughter was born. So, you know. But I guess you know, that aside, you know, you have to deal with these challenges and just get on and just do it. And I did, and we've been pretty much the preferred supplier at the Corn Exchange ever since. And you know, to the point where Chris called me up one day, many years later. He said to me, the boy's left school. He needs to stay in education. Can you help? Of course I can. So we took on his son as apprentice, who worked in our sales and installs department for about 4 or 5 years. Fantastic lad. He's now gone on to be an engineer for BT, and he's doing really, really well. And that gives me a lot of you know, pleasure to see people, you know, grow and succeed in their own careers. And you know, particularly now, I love to try and give back, like we said earlier. You know, from there, an old colleague and friend of mine approached me and said, you know, if you ever look to take anybody on, I'd, you know, be really, really up for you know, doing something with you. So September that year, so September 2007, John Foster joined me, and he's my co-director of Absolute now.
Wow.
And he's now MD, you know, looks after day-to-day running the business. When John joined, we were able to do more. And John has some contacts put together with mine. We started to grow the business. His daughter was born shortly after he joined. But you know, it were two guys, two mates really, working together, sat opposite each other. My computer was the server. We had some shared files, and you know, it was all very, you know, simplistic and fun. And we often joke now when it's all going crazy. Our first office was called Cheney's Lodge, and we say, Lodge? Yeah. Yeah, because life was super easy back then, and you know, the jobs were easy, and you know, now it's different. It's still very much a fun job. It's just a totally different set of parameters that we're working within. Exactly.
The links are insane right now, because you're talking about, you know, connecting to the server or whatever. Ben and I have one little server that we're drawing files off when we're editing, and it's like, the links are insane. It's just like you're talking, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You can't both be in the same file at the same time because it's not a proper server. It's like, oh, have you got the quotes folder open? Because I need to do, oh yeah, sorry, yeah, or the master or whatever. So everything was in Word and Excel, and we didn't have any software packages or anything. It was just really, you know, very basic hand to mouth. It was just fun. It's like, okay, we're in our early 30s and we are doing what we enjoy and, you know, trying to build something. And, you know, never, ever, ever in my wildest dreams did I imagine we'd be where we are today. You know, I think we've got 65 full-time staff now, 3 companies, 2 sites, and you know, we are doing things that, you know, we only looked at as a sort of to try and aspire to down the line. And, you know, by sticking with it and keeping a level head, we've, you know, come out in a really, really strong position. And, you know, in that respect, the future's really exciting because, you know, we're in a position where we can almost do anything we wanted to, you know, and who knows who knows really where that's going to go. But, you know, our ideas now are to build upon what we've started and, you know, see where we can take it. You know, we're still in our 40s but that's really, you know, it's a great place to be and exciting place to be.
Did you have back then, specific goals that you were striving for? Or was it literally just day by day, we're just building something here?
Yeah, I think very much that. We literally took pretty much most work that came through the door. Very, very occasionally we might not engage with things because it just wasn't our thing. But yeah, we're a corporate events company with some history in music, so the sort of two things you kind of crossed over a little bit there. But that was kind of our main thing. We don't really get involved in sort of sporting type things or you know, TV, film. That's not really our kind of thing. So, but yeah, it was very much a case of, you know, we just want to earn a living.
That point is just so relevant to how I've just started this company. You know, Flowspire is starting exactly that same way. As that, you know, I've spoken to colleagues on your gigs, you know, and everybody has their own little thing that they have going on in the side hustle. Call it, that's what it's called now.
Yeah.
But it's there's something that's kind of, there's a confidence thing, or is it something that it's like, oh, it can't be my full thing because that's too much, or something? How did you, when and how did you manage to make the decision to go off on your own and start your own thing?
Okay, yeah, that's an interesting one.
Because that's the switch that a lot of people, I think, it's the struggle. It's terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was. And, you know, if I just wind back the clock to, you know, being younger. So my dad, he runs businesses, he's a bit of an entrepreneur, he's a Cambridge academic, whatever. He said to me one day, son, what the hell are you doing with your life? What are you going to do with the rest of it? And I was just like, I don't know. I'm kind of having...
How old were you at this point?
I was maybe 28, 29.
Right.
So... You know, that's the first time I've ever really thought about it. And he said, well, look, you know, do you want to come and work with me? I was like, why the hell would I want to do that? And he said, well, have you ever thought about starting your own business? I was just like, no, not really. I'm kind of happy doing what I'm doing and whatever. So conversation ended, moved on. But he planted a seed that day.
Right.
Which kind of gnawed away with me for a while. It was kind of early summer, I guess, 2005. It was early festival season, so I was helping him in the week and I was travelling weekends and such, end of the week for festivals with the band. And then over the summer, towards the end of it, I started writing a business plan. Never written a business plan before, but I thought, this is me, this is what I could do. SWOT analysis, what it cost, how much is kit. It was a really interesting thing to do and quite good fun. So I kind of did that and I went back and I showed him, we chatted about it a bit more. And, you know, the next few months went by and we were out all autumn touring. And then we finished in Australia as Motley Crue, Motorhead and Airborne, I think at the time. Finished a big tour out in Australia and I came back and said at the end, I said, I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna go and do my own thing for a bit and see how it goes. So I guess, you know, at that point, you know, 2005, having had 10, 11 good years in the industry, was a case of thinking, well, what can I do? What does this look like, you know, for the future? I was married. You know, I'm not sure if I had a child on the way, but certainly we were talking about having children. And I didn't want to be away all the time. So that was a good way to sort of find a, you know, plan B. And it really was just trying to earn a living for myself by doing something I enjoy. And that's sort of where it started and, you know, kind of how, you know, I met some amazing people along the way and I was very privileged to work in that industry and, you know, still connected to it now to a point. But I also had a lot of really great mentors along the way that taught me how to do things properly and looked out for me and pointed me in the right direction. Because when you're young, you work on a kind of logical basis without any real experience, and you need people to show you, actually, this is how we do things. Or, now it's more about, actually operating the kit is 10% of the job. The rest of it is learning how to do things differently in different situations, how to behave, how to present yourself, how to communicate. It's so much more of that than just doing the technical bit of what we do, and particularly in a service-based industry. So, so it's kind of, as a backline tech, I suppose it was kind of the beginning of that thing, because you're sat next to somebody who's in front of 20,000 people and they're relying on you to make sure that, when they're mid-song and something breaks, that you've got their back and it's there. And it's sort of, it's a relationship building thing. So, and we were a team. That's how, I guess, there's a lot of, we call it more partnership these days within Absolute, but it's that you're a team with your client and you're
trust
working
and redundancy
together. Yeah, exactly. You've got to look out for them. You've got to make you're essentially taking their problems away, because they don't really know what they need you to do, but they just need you to achieve this thing, whatever that may be. So it's my job or our job to work out how we deliver that thing within budget, on time, and meet their criteria, and partner with them in that respect. And, and from there it goes from that one show. It's our business is very much repeat business is really important. So, it turns into 2 shows, or it could be an annual show, or it could be, or we're doing something in Hong Kong and, we don't know anyone out there. No problem at all. We've built up this great international network of suppliers now that we can project manage and, production manage for you, send a small team out. For Advertising Week now, we got up to 6 events last year. One in Japan, one in Australia, one in Mexico, one in the US, one in London, one in Africa. We basically planned all the tech here, procured it all for them locally, sent a small team out to manage it, but we also fed all the streaming back to the UK, so all the camera feeds back to the UK. So we had consistent mixing of all of the lower thirds, and all of the shots were the same. So we had a team sat in our warehouse, basically one for each stage, doing all the VMix here and then pushing it up into Vimeo. And then the client would have someone in the US who was doing a top and tail edit on Vimeo. So our VODs were up in about 15 minutes post session finishing.
Wow.
Advertising Week obviously is a festival of seminars, so it's like one every 30 minutes, 5-minute gap, 30 minutes, 5-minute gap, 4 or 5 days in a row. So, there's 200 plus sessions depending on the number of theatres to deal with. So, but we've built this really great system, and now we're talking to somebody else about a very similar thing. So that's the sort of the fun thing, is to be able to create these systems and then take them to different parts of the world and work with different people and make new friends. And obviously you're generating a new network. And, we're jumping around a bit here, but I was on a panel for MMU, and we did some work with them to support them with their event management students. And we put together a little AV 101 course for them, which said to the students here, this is a handheld mic, this is a lav mic, this is a headroll mic, this is a graphics switcher, this is one of these, this is one of those, and this is where you might use them. And then we created a little site visit for them to go and work out what's the access like, what's the ceiling height, what's the power, because so many students come out of college with all of this knowledge, but have never really been able to put it into practice. So, we'd have, juniors going on site visits for clients and then coming back saying, right, we're doing a conference at this hotel on this date and we need some AV. Great. Right, we need to start. How many people? What's the room layout? What's the access like? Is there any power? They've been and done a site visit and they've looked at the bedrooms, they've tried the food, they've, taken some photos, but they haven't actually done anything that's relevant to the
the job
to the other part of it. So there's sort of delegate management side and everything. Yeah, all boxes ticked. But so we kind of created this little site visit that gave them a bit of an idea of what they need to do. We did it for a couple of years until COVID came along. But anyway, as part of that, they have like I forget what they call it now. It's like a partner conference where they get industry professionals in as part of the conference that you can sit and have lunch and chat to industry professionals about their role and how that might tie in with what they want to do, and they get to see who's coming and what company they're from, and can come and sit on your table for lunch, whatever. But at the end of it, there's a panel, and I was sat on the panel, and one of the questions I was asked is like, what's the best thing you've learned, if you like, in your career? What's the most important thing, you've learned in your career? Your network. That's the thing that, right from my very first job, right to where I am today, sitting here talking to you, it's all about the network. It is. Sorry. Hello? All right, thanks, bye. Sorry.
Sofa.
Driver wants paying.
Oh.
They never told me that. I needed to pay him cash. So,
Of course they did.
So
Network.
So, but that is the whole thing. So yeah. So for my very first job, and some of the people that I think have been my biggest advocates have been some of the most maverick and slightly crazy people from the music world. They're the ones that gave me the opportunities to work for the audio company, to work for Motorhead, to do the Snoop Dogg thing. But those people have also gone on to recommend me in my new career to, do conferences for Advertising Week or whatever. And that link from that particular person links back to his first boss, who started the company in 1973, sold it to my first boss. He then moved to America, was working with the guys from Advertising Week. When they asked if they knew anyone in Europe, he goes back to him, he comes to me, and it's like, wow. The chef in my local pub, Charlie Gratian, he's an absolute gem. He's worked for Absolute now for, I don't know, must be 16 years or so. He was our employee number 4, I think. He went from being a technician to being a warehouse manager, and now he's project manager. But for somebody with no real experience in the industry, he's one of the best people we have, because he is, we joke, if you cut him in half, he'd bleed blue, as in absolute blue. But he is so in tune with people, and they just love, he's so attentive and he's so focused on that side of things. He's got his huge client base that he looks after. There's a lot of the local business, but we've got another 6 project managers on top of that who are dealing with a huge volume of different clients from different industry sectors. And it's a great sort of team that we've built. But particularly post COVID, we also had to rebuild that almost from scratch. So, but it's the team of people that really represent the business, and without them, the business is nothing. So all I'm really doing is coming up with the ideas. Yes, I started it, and yes, I did the accounts, the prep, the driving, the setting up, the taking down, and all the other bits, the buying, for a long, long time. But then things sort of grew, and more people kind of slotted in here and there, and then we did more jobs, and then we bought more kit. And I used to joke it became a kind of cyclical, almost like a whirlpool, like, it's more kit, more people, more vehicles, more storage space, more kit, more vehicles. I think we moved warehouses. Well, we're in our 4th warehouse now, but in the first 3 years we moved 3 times. First 4 years we moved 3 times.
Just coming back to, I see a potential future, for me. So what's it all cost you?
Financially or personally?
Well, I mean, I think financially, it sounds like you're out the other side, but yeah, more personally.
Yeah, I mean, I think you only know the answer to that one when you sit and look back. A friend of mine said to me, who used to work with me with that little AV company in Cambridge, we started 2 weeks apart from each other. He said to me, "How did you know when you made it?" I was like, I don't think I have. I don't. To me, I'm just me doing my thing, and I find it almost a bit peculiar that people see me as something more than what I see myself as, because, you know, I sort of live in my own head, in my own bubble, I suppose. But I do appreciate that we've grown quite an amazing company, but I think it's hard to see it when you're in the middle of it, because to a point you're just dealing with problems or finding solutions, however you want to spin it. But, you know, the bigger it gets, the more challenging that becomes. So I think it's hard to enjoy the success sometimes because you're too focused on keeping all the plates spinning. You know, when it started out, it was easy. It was just me. I didn't have anyone to worry about. As it got bigger, obviously the challenges changed, but they're all positive things. It's just how much bandwidth have you actually got to think about them. And I think, you know, certainly in the last few years, it's become, I think COVID was a bit of a line in the sand, because when that happened, we went from a full order book. You know, I was flying back from Mexico when it was all kind of happening. We'd had a couple of calls where things had been postponed. We had Advertising Week London the week after, which was all booked and ready to go. And by the end of that week, we had zero work. 2-3 days later, or I forget what day it was now, Monday or the Tuesday, Boris Johnson said, we're starting this lockdown thing. And it's a bit like, okay. So we had to make some really reactive, shitty decisions to make sure the company remained going. And at the time, we just got on and we just did it. And it was a bit like starting again, because there was only 3 of us. But you did it, and that was it. But it was really a really difficult time. It's only now you look back at it, you realise how difficult it was. And I think that did beat a lot of the energy, I suppose, out of me personally and of my colleagues. But we're also getting a little bit older, and we've got families and we're trying to look after them, and it's like so many things, and all the people, just feel so bad for what has happened. And how do we do it? We didn't get any government support. We had our local MP out, and he said, well, government can't look after everybody. But a shop which is open and trading gets its rates reduced to nothing. But because we're not retail, we don't get any of those benefits. But we couldn't trade because our business was, our industry was shut. So of course we adapted to do virtual, but it's 25% of the revenue for 100% more work. There's no real kit on it. It was just sitting behind a laptop and dialing people in, whatever. But it kept us going, and I'm proud that we managed to achieve that. But the rebuilding was one of the hardest things, because we came out of that, and after a full start in late 21, going into 22, by March, it was like it had gone from 0 to 100 in about 3 weeks. There was no staff around. Yes, we recruited a few extra people, but we were all out on site doing the work, doing the quoting. It was like being back at square one, but with more people. And we got through it, and eventually we got it stable. But partway through, I guess, probably early last year, excuse me, John and I were chatting. I said, how do you feel about becoming MD? I just need a bit of time to, get to sort of rediscover my passion, I suppose. And it's not like I wasn't enjoying it, but it wasn't as fulfilling as it was before. And I had a whole bunch of personal things going on during that time as well. Which left me, slightly battered and bruised from various different sides. So I guess now I look back and I think, my kids are 14 and 17, and they've been through a lot as well. And it's like, well, would have been great if I'd have been there more for them. But on the flip side, I wouldn't be where I am today if I had. And they've had a nice life from it and such. But I've never really stopped to enjoy anything myself. So, I've always been time poor, got lots of assets, but that's sort of, we've always run the business quite sensibly, and that's one of the things that kept us going through COVID, because we had a load of reserves that we were able to draw upon. So, yeah, I think, you know, in answer to your question, you know, I'm probably past the halfway point in my life now, so I want to, you know, make sure that the future I actually do get to do the things that I want to do more than just servicing everybody else, because that seemed like the right thing to do. It just takes a long time, I think, to go from starting to succeeding to keeping it going to then realizing that you don't have to do it all. So what it's cost me, yeah, is a lot of my earlier years, I suppose, you know, time with my children, my family. But in the last, you know, year or so, I've sort of turned that around, and, you know, I still work really hard. I still project manage and look after a few key accounts. But my role now is much more strategic and thinking about how we grow and how we build, rather than having to be the one that is doing the growing and doing the building. And just because you've got an idea or because you picked up the phone doesn't mean it's your job to do. There's now process and such in place. And, you know, literally from the warehouse team to the technicians to the to the project managers, to the accounts people, the operations people, they all, you know, just get on with it. And it's an amazing thing to be able to sit back and watch it now and not have to worry about it. You know, I get a weekly report through. Fantastic. You know, are we going, yep, everything good. What happened? What went wrong? There's this or there was that, but, you know, dealt with, whatever. Brilliant. I don't have to, you know, so I now feel, I guess I've got more freedom to go and live my own life without having to be there every day. You know, I still work hard, and I, you know, tend to work at home a lot now. You know, I would like to do other things in my life. I, you know, still really passionate about music, and I have my dad band now, which is fantastic, with my friends. But, you know, I'd love to spend more time, you know, maybe buying and selling vintage drums, vintage guitars.
Oh, amazing.
You know, amps, that kind of stuff. That's one of my real passions. Yeah. You know, I'm still loosely connected with the music industry. I don't see myself necessarily working in it anymore, but just having time to go and see more live bands and, you know, the things I used to do and enjoy. And, you know, so yeah, so I think I'm not out the other side of it yet, that's for sure. But yeah, there's still plenty going on, but I feel I'm in a much more content place than I was 5 years ago, let's say. Leading into COVID, before it happened, you know, we were kind of at that juncture where we were so big, but how do we get more? How do we get more sales? And you could kind of almost say that COVID did us a favor, because it allowed the whole thing to reset. And although it's, you know, a negative that some companies are no longer there, that created more work for other companies. And, you know, we are a good sized middle ground company, and, you know, there's the really big companies and there's the really small companies. We all have our place, but it's hard for these companies to go up. But whenever there's any financial turmoil, these companies quite quickly come down. So we're sort of in that, you know, but we can't afford, because of the overheads and such, to come down to the, you know, one-man band, three-person company. So it's like we're sort of stuck in this hard place. So I think it's, you know, when you're a corporation and you're backed, it's a different thing. But, you know, we are self-funded, you know, we're all, everything we've got is bought and paid for, and, you know, that's a great place to be. But it also, I think in some ways it's maybe, I'm not saying it's more volatile, but you don't have as much backup as you do. And, you know, when it was just three of us, your overheads were small, so you didn't need so much reserves. When it was 65, 3 different companies that all pretty much work in the same sector and are all impacted in the same way when things go pear-shaped, that's quite a lot of mouths to feed, mortgages to pay, children to think about. You know, obviously I'm not able to, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? So I guess what I'm trying to say is that, you know, I take the responsibility of that. Sits on my shoulders to make sure those people are okay and that their families are okay. So that's a lot of families to think about. So, you know, but obviously everybody does it differently. And, you know, your experience, I'm underselling this in some ways, because the positives are are really, really good.
I mean, I did ask you, what it cost you, so
Yeah.
So it's kind of it errs on the negative, I guess. But
I think you're running a business is you never really know what it's like until you've done it. So you look at somebody else when you work for somebody else, and you look at their house or their car or whatever, and you think, I could do what they're doing. But what you don't realise is that you've got to do all of it. It's not just doing the work. That's the easiest bit. You've got to earn the money to buy the kit. You've got to prep it. You've got to, do the accounts. You've got to chase the money up. You've got to, insurances and storage, and it's just like endless things.
Redundancy.
You just never thought about it. You just, because you only saw that 10%.
And that's what most people see.
And why would you expect them to see anything more? But obviously, been running a business, you then have to learn very quickly that it's not that straightforward. And I think, that to me has been the, one of my biggest things that I suppose that is the education that I've had along the way. School wasn't really for me, but I've been successful in this world, and I'd love to, maybe do a degree someday and put that on paper to see if my experiences and my ways of doing things are in fact a good model to follow, because every business is different. And my dad works in manufacturing and technology, so he's always got that to fall back on, whereas we're all about service and reliability and quality, etc. So we're very different in that, and we often debate the right and wrong ways of doing things, but there is no right or wrong way of doing things. It's what works for you, for your team, for your client base, for your industry sector, and they're all different. We have four, I think there's 7, but there are 4 core sectors to our industry. There's rock and roll, corporate events, there's broadcast and TV, and oh God, I've forgotten the 4th one.
Lists are the worst, aren't they?
But there's 4 things. We all use the same kit. Oh, theatre. The 4th one. We all use the same kit. We just have completely different business models. Some are short term, some are long term, some are really long term. But the people are very different. Theatre is very sort of unionised, and I think broadcast is to a point, whereas corporate events and rock and roll is very much just roll with it and crack on. But but it's just different ways of doing things, and you have to adapt depending on which one you're in to make sure you're following the right model. Like my first boss, who I referenced a couple of times, he said to me once that PRG had commissioned a study, and nobody's got more than 20% market share in the corporate events industry, so it's not worth getting into. I was like, well, that's ridiculous. I was like, there's probably 300 bands out there that would ever be in a position to be able to afford to carry production on a tour, and X amount of companies in that industry sector. There's thousands, hundreds of thousands of businesses in every country that require some kind of AV support at some time, whether it's a small conference or a installation or whatever. So there's way more market to allow more people to be in it. You don't need a 20% market share. One of the biggest players in our industry, well, obviously Blitz was one of them, Hannah Valley were another, and unfortunately, both those companies are no longer with us, which maybe says that the big company isn't necessarily the way forward in this industry. And obviously there's still some out there, CT and Encore and others. But I think that the small to medium-sized enterprise is a much more fluid and fun way to be, because you can spin up at a different pace, and you can adapt to changes in times. So, you
learn to say no.
Exactly. You understand, your risk points. Buying all the latest, greatest stuff is awesome from a techie's point of view, of which I am. But we've always been a follower as a business, because on the few times we bought something early, it probably ends up going nowhere, because nobody else has got any, or no, the marketing that goes into trying to launch a new video wall, or a new LED wall, or a double-sided LCD screen is huge to get it out there in the market. So that's not what we are. We're a doer. we'll take that and use it for you. But, we sort of rely on the PSCos and such to bring those products to market 2 years down the line when people have invested, that's maybe where we'll go in and do it. And then you get a more stable business rather than taking all the risk and the punt in the early day. And, I think when we bought that projector for the Al Gore thing at the Corn Exchange, I don't think it went out for 6 months after that. And it wasn't even that big. It was like an 8,000 lumen XP56, I think it was. But we bought an LS932 and not an LS9, a M732 for another job. Did the one job, never went out again for probably a year because that's just not our market. We don't need those kind of things. So, you learn a lot as you go along, and sometimes you do, go hope for the best. But you've got to evaluate the risk and say, if this didn't work out, would it bring us down? Yes or no? If it's no, then it's kind of a safe decision if you convince yourself there's a market for it. If it's a maybe it would bring us down, then it's not worth the risk. No, exactly.
If you were to run it all again, do it all again, would you do it in the same way?
Yeah, I think I would actually. Yeah, I had an attempt at running a business prior to Absolute with a close friend of mine back in, must have been the mid 90s, I guess 93, 94 time. It was very much focused on setting up a sort of, especially we were trying to do corporate events, but we bought a rock and roll PA, a bunch of power cans. He's a lampy, I was an audio guy. And we really didn't get anywhere. We spent 20 grand on kit, which was awesome fun putting it all together. First show was a kids' dance show. Then we did something in London, and then we did a couple of little things. But he was travelling. Does a lot of theatre. I was travelling on the music side. So it was never really kind of going anywhere. And I said at the end of that one, if we ever did this again, I'd buy 4 plasma screens. So when Absolute came along, I kind of stuck with that idea of getting the 4 plasma screens, but 4 plasma screens became 100. But that model, it was, back at that point, it was really straightforward. Okay, I was going to London, but it was just supply, didn't even have to fit them. Sometimes I go to site and plug them in if there are a few, but generally speaking, I would just drop them off and pick them up a week later. So it's actually really, really simple. But it was a great foundation to get some money going, to get the, there's a sort of build the brand and start to get, some portfolio to be able to sell and talk to other people about. So I forget the question now.
Would you run it the same way?
Run it the same, yeah. So I think, of course, there would probably be things I would do slightly differently along the way. But, fundamentally, I think the organic way has been really good for us. We've grown bit by bit. We haven't gone out there, employed lots of salespeople to try and grow it super fast, take that risk. We just waited for work to come in through reputation. And it wasn't until 2017 that we really started to do any kind of consideration of proper salespeople. But even then, it was very much a more marketing side of things than sales. And we do have a salesperson now, or we have a couple actually, one for each, one for Display Graphics and one for Absolute. But their market, because we cover so many different things, their market experience is actually usually around one part or another, which is great because there's revenue coming in and those people are doing their thing. We do a bit of marketing to keep our name out there, and that's it. And everything else just comes in of its own accord. And I think that is where network, and it's not just my network, but it's the company's network, the people that we employ, their networks. So people come and buy from those people and we support them, and, together it's a great thing. So, I think the one thing I would probably change if I could would be to try and find more of a balance between work and my time. But I think, I'm not the first one to say that. I'm sure I won't be the last. But
do you think it's possible though? Like it's lovely to say, isn't it? And obviously, you're not the first person to say it and think about that idea of wouldn't it be nice kind of thing. And it's all very well to say that when you're out the other end, but is it actually possible to achieve that balance and achieve the same thing? I don't think there's not enough hours in the day, is there?
I think you're right. I think I would be inclined to say no. I don't think you can.
And it comes back to that question: what does it cost you?
Well, yeah, exactly. So if you work hard at school, as I say to my children, you could be anything you want to be. You can be an accountant, you can be a lawyer, you can be a doctor, whatever. Different type of success, but you've done it through the academic route and you've built up that way and trained in, learned a very detailed skill. I went to the University of Life, don't really have any qualifications, so to speak, but I've worked really hard to generate the work for the business and build the business. But I guess luck plays a bit of a part of it as well. But is it luck, or actually is it
hard work and
making
your own luck?
And making your own luck? Yeah. Exactly. But I guess it's hard to see that at the time because people hear about you and they call you up and then you respond. And that's sort of really what we're doing.
You're always surprised. Oh, somebody's phoning me.
Yeah, exactly. I remember the first time the phone rang, for a job, it was almost like I thought it was my mum ringing to see how I was doing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, we'd like to hire. Have you got a conference phone? That was my very first thing. And I was just like, it was 119 Production Services, based up in Hertford Way. And yeah, I've got one of those. Yeah, cool, great. Can we book it for 2 days? Yep, no problem at all. I had to drive to Cambridge in my car, hire it from somebody else, drive back again. They took it. Probably cost me 25 quid in costs and time to do the job, but it was my first job. So,
and it gets you in the door and you become a supplier and Yeah,
exactly. And we still work with that company now, which is great. And most of our clients we still work with today, unless, for 99.9% of the time, if we don't work with people anymore, it's not because we've done something wrong. It's because, they've had internal changes, people have moved on, recession, COVID, whatever. It's just, so, but we have fantastic client retention, right? And we have fantastic employee longevity as well, which is a really great thing to see. And I feel now, it's trying to help the next generation as much as possible to gain the skills that I was taught when I worked at that PA company. When I worked at the audiovisual company, there wasn't really any training or anything. It was like, here's a set of keys, here's a pile of kit. My first job I ever did for them was a Saturday morning on my own. Drive the van to Epping Forest. It's a breakfast meeting. You need to set up a projector screen and a VCR. So I drove down to Epping Forest, got there, went in, and the breakfast had already started, but I hadn't set anything up yet. So I was like, okay, I wasn't expecting this. So I had to set this projector and screen up whilst everyone was having their breakfast. I don't know if you've ever set up a tripod screen, but I had no idea how to undo the legs. And I know it was an 8-foot screen, so it's like 3 feet taller than me, whatever. And I'm like trying to stand up on this stage and not fall off in front of all these people. And eventually somebody came, do you need a hand? He just pressed the little thing at the bottom. Brilliant, fantastic. Next thing, I've got a VCR, I've got a projector, I've got a SCART on the VCR and 3 phonos on the projector. And I'm like, I've got a triple phono cable. Like, what do I do? It's just like, so I eventually managed to get hold of somebody and like, oh, there should be an adapter in there, which is a triple phono. I was like, brilliant. Anyway, got it running. And I remember my grandparents were over that day and they said, oh, how was it? And I was just like, I was really proud of myself because I sort of managed to do it. It was my first job, which was it was a very different world from working in the rock and roll thing. And, and at this time, I had ponytail and earrings and all sorts. And, my colleague Clive often says to me, he says, he used to crack me up in the colleges when he'd walk in and people would be like, oh, and then I'm like, oh, hello, how are you? And super attentive and so he's like completely didn't reflect the look versus how I was, And I think these are all the skills that I think I've learned along the way, is just to adapt. And, I think 3 years at boarding school probably gave me a really good inclination of how to keep my head down and keep my gob shut and like suss it out and play the game, as it were. Which whether it's the CEO or whether it's the guy who works in the warehouse, I can quite happily communicate always round. And I think that's a skill that is learnt along the way, but that definitely gave me a leg up in that.
Keeps you grounded as well.
It does. So I completely forgot the question because I've gone off on a tangent.
That's wonderful. That's kind of the idea. It's good.
Yeah, I told you. Lots to say.
Well, I mean, it is. The idea is exploration as well, and sort of just having an opportunity to really sort of take time to think about these sorts of things, and that's I guess that's what I'm trying to do here. But it's explorative.
Yeah. I think where I was going, I was just to go backwards a bit, it was on trying to develop the next generation and to help them to have a career in an industry that I love and have a huge amount of passion for, because it's fun and exciting. So I go to work with my mates every day. I don't really have a proper job. I get to tinker around with kit, and which is something I'm interested in, and I get to sort of all the negative things that I've said about it, what it's cost me personally, actually there's a huge amount of satisfaction and takeaway from doing it. Otherwise I wouldn't have done it. And that's the drive, I think, is the enjoyment I get out of it, but also seeing others get out of it, and being part of that team on site and having a crack, the banter, the whole thing. I think I've said this a number of times, but when COVID came along, for most people in this industry, it took away your income. It took away your hobby, and it took away your social community. We're all enthusiasts to start with. That's how we get into it, because we love kit and
making stuff happen. Solutions.
Exactly. It's being part of that team, and the satisfaction at the end of the day. We shut the back doors of the van. The client said, "Thank you. You've done a really good job." So you feel fulfilled. We drive home, and it's like, yes, this is it. This is what I enjoy. And I remember saying to two of my friends once, who I grew up with, who are in the industry, and we were driving around the North Circular in the van. And I said, "This to me is the vision of making it. The three of us being here in a van full of kit, as us, rather than it being somebody else driving around. That to me is a point of getting to that success level. Of course, we hadn't made it. I don't think you ever do make it. I think you just, because the world is always evolving, and whether that's equipment or whether it's the ways we do things or whether it's just generations of people coming along. Things are always changing. You have to change with it. So, I think the thing now is to try and, make sure that the next generation understand the important things that we've learned along the way. And by having apprenticeships in the company, we can bring in people. We have, usually try to take a couple of people per year, whether they're apprentices or whether they're just school leavers, and they spend a couple of years in the warehouse. They learn all about the equipment, all the different areas of the company, health and safety, and we try and instill in them that discipline of how to behave, how to interact, how to, and once they get to that point, then they can start to go out and, as part of a team and see how the others operate on site and go from there. And we've just had our first couple sort of, who joined us during or at the end of the pandemic, kind of move into that tech position. It's really exciting to see them come in, or having been through that process, and now be out there themselves. And the next couple have literally just started, or one starts next week, I think. They're a 2-year apprenticeship course, and that's great to see. But also to be able to carry people up through the company, because we've often said it, but when there's only 3 of you, it's like, what are the opportunities for me in the future? Well, if we do well, you'll do well. But at the moment, it's kind of hard to know. But true to the word, though, John joined me as number 2, and he's now the MD. He's been with us 16 years, and Brian been with us 14 years. Kathy in accounts 15 years. It's loads of them. And even the ones that don't work for us now, we're still really close to the majority of them, and they're all off doing different things now, which is great. But, you know, it's the friendships, the long-lasting friendships, and I think that's a really important thing. And, you know, that's before we get into the whole, you know, looking after people and mental health and all that thing, because it is a hard industry to be in sometimes, because it requires an awful lot of hours, often for weeks at a time. So you've got to kind of look out for each other and keep each other on the path, and, you know, as a manager, know when enough's enough and know when to, you know,
push and pull
exactly, and intervene and, you know, keep people engaged, because that's the last thing you want, is for people to get disheartened, because, you know, but I guess there is that, you know, understanding that the events industry is not a 9 to 5, you know, so, but if you're an enthusiast, it's part of the ongoing, you know, growth in whether it's your career or, you know, your hobby, whatever, is the fact that it does take up lots of time. And it's a vocation, isn't it? It's not you know, somebody said to me, when it's a smaller company in Cambridge, you know, this is a lifestyle job for us, you know, and I said, well, this is a lifestyle job for me. I think we're very much talking at opposite ends of for me, it is my life. For you, it's having a nice car and a nice house, you know, which I obviously would like too, but, you know, but it is 110%. And yeah, my experience is, to go back to what you said earlier, I think you do have to do that to achieve that level of success, or, you know, otherwise, or, you know, but define success, because it's different for everybody. The guys who have a lifestyle business, they employ 6 or 8 people, nice little unit, you know, bimbling out of Cambridge. It's a really nice business, and I'm somewhat envious of them. But on the flip side, I'm also happy with my lot, and, you know, I'm pleased that we got to do what we've done and get to where we are, and I want to see where I can take it from here. But, you know, it's not just about me now. There's a lot more people there to help me and to be part of that journey. And I think, you know, I guess that's the next chapter, which I'm not entirely sure what it looks like yet. But yeah.
Amazing. How are we doing, Ben? We're in good shape. Look at that. 12:30. Is that an hour?
120.
120.
Wow.
Fantastic.
That's good.
We'll do one more, just because I'm really interested.
Ask me any questions you want. I'm quite happy to share.
No, you're such a fantastic guest, as I expected and knew you would be. And I sort of feel honoured, you know, that you've come. So I really no. Well, I do, because again, it just comes back to the mentor mentee thing for me. Because again, I'm at the start of what you've explained perfectly well, you know, where it all started, and it's sort of I share a lot of how I'm sort of running things, and I think Ben can vouch for that.
Yeah.
Well, for better or for worse. And this is something that I kind of struggle with, and so I'm really interested. In what areas of your life are you happy to be good enough?
Oof, it's deep. Let me ponder that one for a second.
It's designed to be explorative and terrifying, and yeah.
I think that's a really interesting question. Actually, I think it's quite a hard one to answer, because I'm not someone who sort of ever really stops and sits down and takes stock of things or whatever. Not one to go sit on the beach. And, you know,
I'm exactly the same.
I like to be busy and always try and, you know, better myself. I think now I have to accept that I can't do everything. So actually, the answer to the question, in my job, I'm actually good enough at what I do. And whilst I want to build it, I want to find people who want to build it with me and be part of that journey rather than having to do it all myself. So I guess, if you like, I'm fulfilled in that respect now, that I have sort of achieved a gajillion times more than I ever set out to do. So, but obviously you can't just stop. You have to keep going. So, but I'm limiting the number of things I do because I want to do other things. So, like spend time with my children, go and watch more sports matches, go on holiday from time to time, and it's not that I don't go on holiday, but, when I am on holiday, I'm not always present with the family because my mind is elsewhere or whatever. So, and I think, there are things I'd like to do, and get good at. I recently started playing cricket. Me and a friend, we started a midweek cricket team because we wanted to play cricket. But honestly, the benefits of doing it and the responses that we've got from people have been amazing. The guys are like, before this, I didn't really know anyone in the area, or I was at home, my kids have grown up and moved on, and I didn't have any friends, and it's like the whole mental health thing. It's like it's a game changer to me. I just wanted to play cricket, and it sort of created this whole new network of people and a bubble of friends, and and I'd like to do more of those kind of things and give back, and I am sort of doing that. But we're involved. There's a thing called the Power of Events. I don't know if you've come across it. It's run by Rick Stainton, who used to be the CEO for Smile. I think he's recently, as I understand, he's left Smile now. They've recently been acquired by somebody, and he set up this thing, and it's all about going around the schools and educating, year 6, 8, 10 students about, the events industry and the opportunities that are in there. And another panel I was on for Anglia Ruskin University, run by a friend of mine, Mark Pickering. He runs part of the music course at ARU, and it was all about jobs in music that you don't have to be a musician. So and I was on a panel with someone who ran a studio, myself as a former roadie, let's call it. Another one was a promoter, and I can't remember who the other one was. But there's so many jobs in music that are not being a musician. The same way I say to my son about sport, he wants to be a professional football player. If you don't do that, which would be awesome if you did, what are your options? Work hard at school. Look at what things. You could be a medic, you could be a coach, you could be a journalist, you could be, so many different things. And, so it's, trying to get kids engaged with our industry, because there are a lot less technicians around than there used to be. It's trying to get them hungry for that, idea. For me, it was messing around with lights at school and whilst doing a drama A level, but does that thing still exist? But, having them in on work experience, to explain to them how this is what we do and make them aware of the opportunities that are out there. Because for me, Siphon wanted to be a pilot, and then I sort of went down a bit of a weird path. I never really knew this industry existed, and it's been the best thing ever. So I think it's really hard to know what am I good enough at, but I think I'm good enough in my job now. I want to get better at being me as a outside of work. This has been my, life, I suppose, for a long time. And now I want to do things differently. And, as I say, whether it's my hobbies or whether it's going to schools and talking to kids about what I do, and a bit like I'm talking to you now, but, trying to impart some level of wisdom and influence on how things could be for them when, I didn't have that, and I got some fantastic people that taught me, but I sort of had to figure out how to get there myself. It's like, I just want them to be aware. I want people to be more aware of it. So, but the events industry is vast. I think, when you get to weddings and so much you can do, and it's a big industry. I can't remember what the contribution is to the country's sort of revenues per year, but it's significant, and there's several 100,000 people working in sort of corporate hospitality world. So yeah. So I don't think I've really answered your question there.
Well, I think you've done a great job, actually.
But yeah,
because it's bloody tough.
Yeah, I think I'd just like to do more. Now I'd like to do more to help others and to help them, whether it's in their career or whether it's personally. Having been through the ringer, having helped others through the ringer, or going through the similar situations, it's important that there are people out there that you can talk to. And I think just come back to being a nice guy. It's that's part of my job, is to look after people. If I could do a bit more of that, then, I'd be really keen to do that whilst continuing to do what I do.
All part of the service.
Exactly that. I think that's a great line. Yeah, I think that works.
Yeah. Well, I think it's all there. It's all there. I think it's plain as day that you can see who you are as formed your company for what little my words might be worth. Like it's absolutely amazing to see it. It's a pleasure to work with you and for you. It has been a real pleasure. And actually, just from my own perspective, like I was, just tell you a little bit of how I ended up working for you is those jobs on a freelance basis. I put my name. I think you came to UH, representatives at UH. I don't know who it was.
Oh, I think
it might have been.
It's Brian.
Yeah,
potentially.
It probably was Brian
with Julia.
Yeah,
who's HR lady.
And I put my name down on the list because I was actually there as a company, my first company.
Okay.
Which was a music studio run out of here, and put my name down. And then 2 years later or something, I think I just followed up email or whatever and said, just let you know I'm still here.
Yeah.
And actually I've lived a pretty sheltered existence, as you can probably ascertain from being here, and actually doing those jobs give me a lot of brought me back to reality a bit. I did the boarding school thing as well, and doing some hard graft, and long hours is probably one of the best things I ever did to fulfill more of a work ethic, and so whether you realize it or not, that's happening. Just by offering the work and the services and stuff, just running the company, basically, that's kind of happening naturally. It certainly has for me. And now I'm at a point where I'm starting my own little venture.
Yeah,
so
that's great, and I think it's so exciting to hear stories like that. We all have our own story, where we came from and whatever, but you only get somewhere really by doing it and doing it well. You can have all the money in the world, what they say, all the gear and no idea, whatever, but you still got to build a client base, you still got to build a business, I think, I've worked with a number of people who have had small studios, which sadly is a world that is really non-existent anymore.
Yeah.
And they've spent a fortune on stuff. I mean, it's great, but there's no commercial value in it. And our building is the old Neve. Well, our previous building was the old Neve Electronics building.
Wow.
And it's got a studio in it, which was their old demo room. So we kitted it all out because I'd always wanted a recording studio. And I don't know what we spent on it. Well, it wasn't huge amounts of money, but it was just called it 25 grand or whatever. I ended up subletting it to somebody who would work at weekends and charge 250 quid, but he wanted 150 quid, so I was getting 100 quid. But I've got 25 grand's worth of gear. I'm paying rent on the space, rates on the space, electric bill. So really, when all's said and done, there's no money in it. So we in the end we said we actually needed the space for storage, so we took the kit out, and
And it's sad to see it go, but
But the music industry as a whole has. I remember my friend Adam saying to me, Adam manages lots of really cool heritage bands like Europe, Uriah Heep, Saxon for a Time, Thin Lizzy and stuff. But he said, one day you go into HMV and you just plug your iPod in and work out. It's like you didn't even get that far. You just HMV shut, Virgin Megashore shut. It's like all of those things just disappeared. And but that's the modern world, isn't it? And, music, I think, has been, hugely, decimated by that whole thing. Even now it's like the record labels, where, you just, do you really need them anymore? It's like, there was millions, if not billions of pounds there. And it's just completely changed the whole, dynamic of how it works, how you promote yourself, whatever. And, obviously, got 2 teenage kids and, listen to very different music to what I do. And it's really interesting to see how they find it. It's TikTok, it's your Snapchat and all those things that I don't even really engage with. Exactly. And, for what it's worth, I watched Stacey Solomon Advertising Week, and she's like, if you're this generation, you're Facebook, if you're this generation, you're Instagram, if you're this generation, you're TikTok, and you've got to prepare something from her point of view that hits all areas. And it's like, so, but to me, digital marketing is not a thing. It's, we have social posts and whatever, but it's like the world is changing so quickly and has done in my lifetime, in your lifetime. And I think, you sometimes have to take a sort of step back and just sort of, am I the right person to carry on doing this? When my first boss, not first boss, but when one of my bosses was saying to me, we don't want to do that. We've been doing this and this works really well. Why do we need to go and spend all this money on this new kit? It's like, because that's what people want, because it's not 1973. It's 1993 or whatever it is, and times have changed. But I guess from their point of view, and I see it now, they're coming to the end of their career and risk, and wanted to enjoy that and continue doing what they did until it almost tailed off. Whereas I was at the very beginning of mine and I was looking to grow and do things differently. So, not seeing it at the time, but you've ultimately butt heads because you're trying to do 2 different things. And I think, it's only now that I really see that. And when I got these, 18, 19-year-olds coming into my company, I can almost see them, a simimer path.
Why do we do things this way?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but it's taking the time to explain it to them rather than just saying, no, go, leave me alone. I'm not going to engage on it, sort of thing. Because I guess to a point, they know they're maybe not going down the right path, but they're comfortable with it. And I think that's the thing, is sort of understanding. There's a lot of psychology, I suppose, involved in it. And, the older you get, the more you see things as they really are. And, my kids say to me, oh, I haven't got any homework tonight. And I go, yes, you have. You always have homework. I know you do, because I used to say the same to my parents, and probably my parents before that said that to their parents. It's like, we feel we invented it, but a lot of it is just the path and the cycle, isn't it, of understanding people and and different generations, different technologies, different ways of doing things. And I think we are in an unusual place right now, but I can't quite put my finger on it yet of whether that's the generation or whether it's just us, because we sit between a very formal, you must do this, you must keep your gob shut, whatever, do as you're told, to a generation that sort of, is indulged in whatever they want to do and allowed to do whatever they want to do, which is great. Both are great, but we sit between the two, and it's kind of like watching a game of tennis in your own mind sometimes, trying to work out, your parents are saying this and your kids are saying this. It's like, well, you're both right.
Yeah.
But how do we bring them together to find a good place and such? But I'm not sure we'll ever really fully get that, because like our post-war grandparents to the, my parents as grandparents to, say those that grew up in all, to us as grandparents, we're all going to be hanging on our own era, so
because that's what we knew, yeah.
Because that's what we knew, yeah, exactly. And music is always going to be there, but I find it hard to find new music now. I don't know where to look for it. I was over at Marshall a few months ago talking to Joel there, and he said, no, there are loads of new rock bands out there. There's all these festivals, and he's telling me all about it. And I was just like, wow, because we don't really get magazines anymore. But I'd always buy Kerrang or Rock Sound or whatever it was back in the day. And you just have so much in there. But now I don't even go to the shops that often to buy. We don't even see magazines in shops, really, do you? From the airport, I'm looking around, but it's don't even sell anything that's worth reading. So it's such a different way, but I haven't graduated to digital magazines. Not really sure. I run a tech company, but I'm quite, what's the word? Elementary in my own use of tech. People used to say, "Oh, you must have an amazing sound system or TV or whatever at home." It's like, it was only about 6 years ago I upgraded from a massive, deep, TV to a flat screen.
Oh.
Because it's like, well, why would I? It's just, this one's fine. And I started with a plasma from work, but we've got, 25 plasmas there's nothing wrong with, but nobody wants to hire a plasma screen anymore. They want to hire a super slim, lightweight LCD, LED, screen. It's just like, well, we just have to buy a load more and put those. So I put one up at home, and after a while I was like, oh, I'll try one of these new ones. But it's funny. But I think that's partly because you do it all day, every day. The passion somehow, when you have to do it outside of work, it's not as. After a while, it doesn't have the same level of importance. It's like, what, I've been doing it all day. I'm quite happy with that one. So,
Alex, it's an absolute pleasure, and thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. It's been great. Appreciate it.
I'm going to shake your hand. Absolutely awesome.